Hello, beautiful people. Today I wanted to talk about the many faces of Makyo, and I want to share my experiences with dealing with Makyo, particularly during the sessions, which are intense, 1 week long Zen retreats, meditation retreats. As you probably already know, Makyo is a Zen definition for part of ourselves that does not want to change, that does not want to go, that does not want us to go further in our Zen practice and meditation practice, and usually comes up, though not always, during the session. So today I want to share my thoughts and experiences with dealing with Makyo. And while there is a part of ourselves that really is dedicated to freedom to go further in our practice, there is Makyo that wants to derail our practice. Over many, many lifetimes, a part of ourselves gets used to how things are and does not want us to go further. During my first sessions, Makyo usually would appear as some sort of seduction, as in like Buddha and Jesus, who both experienced Makyo at the most critical time before in their journey. We too are visited by Makyo trying to seduce us away from our practice. Famously, it was Buddha who, sitting under the Bodhi tree, Mara brought her daughters and started dancing for him, trying to subdue his practice. Of course, it didn't work, so she said the most dangerous thing you can say to anybody. She turned to the Buddha and says, "Hey, you're not even worth it. Why are you doing this?" And famously, Buddha touched the ground and said, "Nah, I'm worth it, thank you." Same with Jesus. He was tempted many times, including saying, "Why don't you eat bread? Why are you fasting?" And he famously said, "Man shall not live by bread alone." So during the first sessions, it's usually some sort of seductive things. And usually there are three categories. First one is sexuality comes up. You may have images or memories of an ex partner, romantic partner, or you might somehow be attracted out of nowhere to another participant at a session, usually if it's a larger session. Keep in mind, you've never talked to this person, you've never met them, and your mind plays games with you. Oh, how are you gonna marry this person? You're gonna have kids. You're gonna live happily ever after. And that's Makyo, just playing games with you. Or you might find some sort of anger or aggression about somebody that did you wrong many years ago, or some sort of political view, or how the government is doing this or that. So basically, Makyo tries to derail our practice by working on on our wounds, things that we are biased against, and derail our practice. Another common one is rebellion against religion. You might think, this Zen practice, this Zen teacher doesn't know what they're talking about. Or what am I doing here? A week long? A week of this? For what? I could be working, making money. That again is Makyo, because if you didn't feel the need to be there, you probably wouldn't be there. So these are the most common one, and thankfully, not a lot of that had happened to me during my first sessions because I already had practiced quite a bit on my own, so I was able to discern it. So that for me, that was the first phase of dealing with Makyo. The second phase was when, and that's probably one of the most insidious ways of it, when you actually are advancing your practice. So you don't have those jitters anymore, you get in deeper in your meditation, but around day 3 or 4, 5, you feel happy, very happy. Indeed, so much happy that you want to talk to people, but you really hold yourself back. So happy that you think about things you want to do when you go back. Maybe work, maybe meditation, maybe building a meditation shed under that beautiful tree you have in the backyard. So that's pretty much coasting, as my teacher says. And that's equally as dangerous. No, 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 no. You're there to work and work hard on your practice. And anything, no matter how joyful, no matter how happy it is, that derails you from your practice is most certainly Makyo. So for me, it was the idea of, oh my God, I feel good. I want to do something for humanity. I want to start a charity when I go back. And sometimes I would mention it to the assistant teacher first thing in the morning. God bless her. She would say, hey, that's Makyo. Stop it. And she told me the greatest gift you can give to the world is your practice. And that's very much true. So the happy and joyful feelings come up, and they were very strong for me later on during the session, usually around the halfway through. And I had to really, really, really make a determined effort to just ignore it. Feel it, experience it, let it go. And I realized that the most important thing is for me to go back to my practice. I wasn't enlightened yet. I wasn't over the hill yet. I still had to do practice. And that's the only thing that mattered to me during my meditation retreat. So I advise you to be really on guard on that one. Sometimes the happy, joyful feelings, wanting to talk to other people, or ideas about the future, they're not real. They're just your imagination. They don't even exist. And the most potent thing that I could say to deal with it is, listen, to myself, I would say, listen, if it's really that important, or if it was really helpful, make me feel better, why didn't it help me last year? Why hasn't it helped me in the last 10 years? XYZ. And that would make me aware that it's just Makyo playing mind games with me. And I would just let it go like a hot potato, as it's commonly said. So that's another thing. And but the most important, most difficult thing for me later on, that's pretty much my maybe the third phase, let's call it that way, was when I was advancing and my teacher was saying, hey, you're doing great, which is not very common actually. Teachers usually don't give you a lot of feedback, but my teacher knew that my weak point was, and would usually say, you're doing great, keep that work, keep at it. However, very often that nagging feeling would come to my mind during the session that I'm not doing enough. I would spend all day and a lot of the night practicing meditation. I would do extra sitting. I would be so focused on it all the time, but yet I would either go to sleep or wake up thinking I'm not doing enough. And that again is Makyo. That's sort of attachment to our practice. And our Makyo tries to derail us. I remember I read a book, The Three Pillars of Zen by Roshi Kapleau, which is a great book, but also very misleading. And it is the story of this enlightenment stories of these Japanese students who work so hard, do or die. And I mentioned it to my teacher before the session. I said, oh, I've been reading this book and it's quite great. He said, oh, yes, it's a good book, but be aware. It's the blood and thunder doesn't always work, particularly for you, because I had a lot of trauma growing up. So be mindful of it. And sure enough, halfway through, I told my teacher in one of my interviews, says, I don't feel I'm doing good. You know, I'm reading these books. And she just rolled her head and rolled her eyes and sat back and says, come on, that's Makyo. You know it. You're better than this. And I realized, yes, it is Makyo. And I can do better than this. So I let go of my attachment to my practice. And that attachment was really difficult for me during that particular session. And it would come up, but then I would focus on it and realize that that's just Makyo playing games with me. Like Makyo told the Buddha that he's not enough, it was telling me that I wasn't doing enough, which is nonsense. So that's a very critical point, because sometimes we have this feeling that we can go to such and such teacher, or we can go to Japan and study is going to be better, or we're going to go to Tibet and not Tibet, but India, let us say, because Tibet you can't really practice there anymore, or wherever but there, and things are going to be better. Or that you would think that I thought if I go to Japan and work with a more strict teacher, I might do better. No. We are there because our karma brought us there. And as long as we progress in our path, that's the right place for us to be, all other things being equal. So that's something that I had to struggle with. So the Makyo went from the seductive ex-girlfriend popping up in my head, seductive thoughts about money and business, to charity and looking after my parents while I'm gone, to my practice. I can do better if I only go somewhere else. It's going to be better. It's all Makyo, basically. As the saying goes, and this is a very important thing, as a Zen student, anything other than your breath work and your koan is a distraction, and that's true. So I would tell myself what my assistant teacher told me: put it off till after sesshin. There is no thought that pops in your head, no emotion, no feeling that cannot wait for a couple more days after the sesshin, unless it's an emergency. And yes, I think there was only one emergency. There was a broken pipe and I had to leave one day early, but that only happened once. All right. So there you have it. You have to be very mindful of these seductive things. Makyo can appear in many forms: sexuality, aggression, anger, feeling that you can do better somewhere else, feeling that your teacher isn't really all that what he or she is meant to be, um, falling in love with something or someone during the sesshin. All those things are just Makyo playing mind games with you. And I want to emphasize that those things are not your enemy. They're not against you. They're just a part of yourself that are trying to distract you from your practice. The best way I can describe Makyo in my experience is like you pick up a kitten, cat that is born in the wild, and you give it food and you give it shelter, and it's the happiest it's ever been, and the food is so good and it's so warm in the wintertime, but every time you try to feed it, it hisses and tries to attack you and scratch your eyes out. Why? Because it's a feral cat. It's been feral for generations. Of course that's what they do. Even though if she loves you to death, she's still gonna scratch you for the first month or two or longer. So the same thing is with our Makyo. Through many, many lifetimes, many, many years, we picked up habits, ideas, um, belief systems, and part of ourselves wants to keep that. And that's what Makyo is all about. But thankfully, I hope you have a great teacher, assistant teacher, and a great teaching, and none of this will be bothering you because you know who you are, you know what path you're on, and nothing and no one can distract you. Anyways, I hope this video helps you in some way or form. And if you ever thought about doing a sesshin or any other meditation retreat, hey, that might be the right time for you to do it. Wishing you all the good things in the world, all the blessings, and I hope to talk to you next time. Take care.